heart attack. Fast, fatal, heart impact. Past painful scars, in fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact, don't ask, grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new submerged juice. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now. Y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, before we do begin, let's give a brief little review. In the last part, quite a number of things have happened. We had things with Deku and Lady Nagant. Now, Lady Nagant got into contact with Deku from the underworld, and right now, she gave Deku a key to the kingdom. Everything he would need to find the committee, take them down, and locations where they would fall back to in case something happens. Now, Nagant also explained why the committee, they finally pushed her over the edge. What they did to Deku was quite simple. They took him and a select number of kids who have specialized powers and tried to train them to become weapons, become the black sheep of Hero Society, work in the backgrounds everywhere, far and wide, to maintain and regulate heroes. Basically, monitor the people who monitor society, and, if they do need to, bring down the hammer on the ones who break the rules. They wanted to do that on a large mass scale, and turn heroes into said weapons, if not completely redo the society and how things may work in the future. Because society right now is at a tipping point. Deku, he would learn a day later after this that All Might would retire, because people are losing trust in pro heroes. And the fact that the symbol of peace would retire, it breaks a lot of things society previously knew about the world. Or if not, people, their trust in the system. Now, with that being said, Mirio Togeda got one for all. So Night sees this as the proper timeline. Things are finally going back to normal the way they should have gone, in his eyes. And Mirio was there to take down All for One as well. And he was seen as somebody All Might could rely on, because these two, they were very powerful when they took him on. And All for One, yeah. He was imprisoned and the UA students were recovered. And the UA students, after they were given medical attention and even, well, evaluated, a few things were found out. 3 of these students were left in conditions that seemed them as mentally unwell. And they would need to have either recovery or therapy for it. And 2 of the students they've discovered have lost their quirk abilities because of All for One and what he may have done to them. Now, the students who lost their quirks are quite simple. There's Mina. Her acid ability All for One saw is very powerful and very, very strong. And then, there's Shoji. Shoji was somebody All for One looked at similarly to Deku. He just thought that the power, if it was mixed with another ability, could create Deku's. And that's where things are sort of mistaken. You can create a variation of Deku's power, but you can't shapeshift the limbs into spikes, clubs, or even axes or weapons. Or do exactly what Deku does do by shifting his body and actually stretching it like rubber. Now, All for One, when he took this ability and tried to mix it together with a few others, he created a knockoff version of Deku's ability, essentially. But it was still seen as good to him. Now, Shoji has lost his quirk. And whenever the villains tried to turn Bakugo into a villain, they talked to him. And Bakugo, yeah. The situation he was in was quite simple. He was going to comply for a minute and eventually try and run. In Todoroki, he actually learned Dabi was his brother, and Dabi was murdered by Izuku Midoriya. That was something that he didn't fully understand. And even All for One came to the boy and tried to tell him, tried to manipulate him, turn him on their side. He is the son of currently the #1 hero, and that would break society in many ways. A boy who went to a hero school, 3 vigilantes, came out of that school and one turns into a villain, that is their ideal goal right now. That was seen as Plan B, if not Plan C, because Plan B relies on Shigaraki. Now, there also was things with Momo. Momo's ability, it was interesting to All For One. However, he is aware that her quirk is strange. She takes time to create objects, and whenever questioned about this ability, she actually did try to talk a bit more about it, at length. And after discovering All For One would need to know the atomic structures and use fat lipids from his own body, the quirk didn't seem viable enough to use in combat against All Might. He thought you had to wait for a minute and visualize the object in your mind, not know how to bond the materials together and how to create steel eventually from fat lipids. Now, Momo, she was able to keep her abilities, and whenever she actually was trying to worm her way out of the situation, the heroes came in to save her. However, they were currently in the process of brainwashing and trying to turn these kids into Nomus. Now, they were trying to get them mentally prepared, if not undergo certain things. And that's where things got a bit more tricky. Right now, these students, they are in recovery, and All For One is in jail. Meanwhile, there's Izuku Midoriya. He is running free with a smile on his face, because he knows where the community is going to be, he knows what they're going to do, and he knows exactly their plans. And right now, a lot of information is in his hands. And a lot of information he has pertains to things he wanted to know. Specifically, certain information about what exactly happened those years ago with his parents. Now, Deku, whenever he found this file, he read it, and he just stared at it. This piece of paper, it had a location on it. And Deku, he was worried. He was surprised, to say the least. The location would point Deku at a factory. And Deku, after he does find the coordinates, him and the girls do head there. Now, right now Eri, she's left by herself. However, Eri, she is well aware as to what to do and what not to do. And she does actually trust these people. They're kind, they're nice, and, well, they treat her good. And Deku's actually trying to help her train her power. And she actually is very happy about that. Deku isn't afraid of her power. None of these people are. And from what Deku has explained, her being in the hands of the heroes, it would be safe, but there's a chance it could also be bad. And she doesn't fully understand that. Now, Deku, however, whenever they pulled up to the factory, they discovered quite a bit. They searched around. It took a while, but they finally discovered something. Whenever they went to the basement, the concrete was different from the concrete upstairs. This was more well preserved from what it looked like. The ground was sturdier, less cracks, and, well, from what they can tell, people may have been down here a lot more than they were upstairs. Upstairs, the concrete's cracked. The building is clearly going to fall down sometime in the future, but it still stands. And the foundation, it's all good. But here in the basement, the ground underneath them, it's solid, it's cleaner, but still dirty, and it's seemed to have been relaid, I guess. The best way of saying it is someone renovated down here, but they didn't go upstairs to renovate. And Deku, after he realizes that simple fact, he actually just brings his hands up, him turning them into mallets, and starting to shapeshift. Now, Deku smashes through the ground, and Deku, he does find exactly what they thought they would find. Right now, this entire factory, the basement is full of skeletons. And Deku, he's alerted by that. The fact that there's nobody alive here, and there's bodies upon bodies. It tells them everything already. They were right. They realized it years ago, and they tried to hold out hope for years. But the committee, they actually murdered their families. And Deku, he currently does sit in the car. Right now, he does look down to his hands, fumbling his phone, as there are actually tears rolling down his face. And Deku just won't sit there. He's angry. He's mad. And he's not too sure what to do. They found a factory full of fucking skeletons. Their families. People he knew. People he trained with are here. And the committee, this shows a lot more. Some of these people, Deku either doesn't believe he's recognized or even seen before. But that's just it. Some are old and some are fresh, you could say. They're in later stages of decay, but they're not fully decomposed. And Deku, that does worry him. That means that this place was in use recently. That means that whoever may have put a body here recently, it's still being used to hide bodies, or is it still another dump? But that's just it. Nagon gave Deku a file that could have been years old. And that's just it. Years. That means that this place is either an abandoned place the community stores bodies, or there's another place where they dump, where they stash their loose ends. And that is what Deku's worried about. And right now, they're actually the girls get in the car. As right now, Mizuki, she is sitting in the front seat, and Ochako is in the back seat. And Deku, he does go to put the car in drive. And right now, the three do head out. As the three of them, they're all talking. Right now, Ochako, she's crying. And Deku does look towards Mizuki, who actually does have tears in her eyes. And right now, Deku, he does look at Deku bring his hand up and hold it out to Mizuki. As off of Deku's elbow, another arm just pop out. And right now, that arm actually does grab onto Ochako's knee. Ochako actually looking up before bringing her own hand up and grabbing onto the hand. And Deku is trying to tell both of them. Right now, he knows what they need to do. Right now, though, he needs to go talk to somebody. When they get back to the hotel, he's going to leave. He'll return soon. He does want them to know that. However, he needs to have a private discussion with somebody. Now, the two, they do listen. But right now, the fact is, all of them are emotional. I mean, they're angry, they're pissed off, and they're mad. But they're also mourning, confirmation, evidence, an actual body to bury properly. This is more than they could ask for, but it's also a reality now. They've been orphaned by the committee. And that makes this a lot more personal. That makes this more than just revenge. That makes this justified in their eyes. Now, with that being said, when they do get to the hotel, Deku, he does leave them the car keys. And right now, he actually does Godoki turn and fly up into the air with dragged wings. And right now, Deku, he does head to the city, where UA is. Currently there actually is over with Mr. Nezu. Nezu, he is sitting down trying to connect these dots. He has a cup of tea in his hand, and right now he's looking at all this. He's heard Sir Night-Eye's theory. He's looked into it more. And he actually is curious. Everything going on does point towards the committee being sketchy. Anytime an incident with the Uzuma Midoriya popped up, they are immediately on it. They respond faster, they respond quicker, and they investigate this with their own people. They don't leave it to the heroes. The investigation is totally controlled and out of their own jurisdiction. And that just worries them. They understand specialized task force that do these sort of things, but the committee, they're seemingly overreaching with their jurisdiction, and that does worry them. Right now, Nezu, he's concerned. The committee is sketchy, and even Night is on his toes about this. Izuku Midoriya may not be just some vigilante. No. This is where Nezu, he does have his screen turn black. And right now, he does look up to see Izuku sitting down in a chair. As Nezu just stared at him for a second, before looking up and asking him if he would like a cup of tea. Not the reaction I was expecting. You caught me at a bad time. What is it, Izuku? Well, interesting. So right down to business, okay. Well then, Mr. Nezu, I'm here to inform you of something. Is this about the Hero Committee? Yes. I'm assuming you're conducting your own investigation into them, after everything that you've heard and seen about me. I am, yes. May I ask a few questions while you are here? That's why I'm here. Perfect, then. First off, how did you get through UA security? I was under the suspicion there. Well, I assumed no one would be able to get past their security in any time, actually. Slime, flight, and invisibility. So what? Is it that one girl from Class 1B's ability? Who? Never mind. Well then. I also do have questions about the committee. You suspect them of being sketchy, of working in the dark, of doing many different things that you claim that they do. I've looked into it, and I've even found that you are suspected of a few murders. Some that we are aware you weren't in the city at the time. Stain is a very good example. The committee, however, they're also trying to pin other murders on you, such as the case with the pro hero who died suspiciously, and the other ones who people they point out in the Odyssey in torture. Yeah, that's the thing. Those are committee agents. The committee, they have done quite a bit. Right now they're trying to use an operation to create a massive army of secret heroes. Hall monitors, if you will. People who will regulate the people who regulate the civilians. The pros, they do their job. But if they overreach or overstep, then they want their secret police force to take them out. They want pros to be able to, well, be pulled out of the public's eye very quickly and very fast. And they want it done in a way that doesn't look suspicious. They want to stop the corruption. I see. Well, they have good intentions, but they have a very, very poor execution method. That is what I was thinking exactly. First, they had Lady Nagant. Then they had Hawks. Then they had me. They've had others before. I know they have. They've had others after me. Right now, however, those agents, they're unaware as to exactly what's going to happen. The committee want people who are loyal, and that means that they'll take certain methods to the extreme to make sure they're loyal. I see. And with All Might out of the picture, then that does pose more questions. A more chaotic society for a minute will definitely give them good opportunities. Exactly. And with the Meta Liberation Army peeking over the hill, it gets worse. I was worried about them as well. So we're on the same page. Not exactly. What evidence do you have that the committee, they've done these acts? Now, Deku, he immediately does pull out a phone, him turning and putting it directly on his desk, telling him to scroll through all of that. Look at the next 10 pictures and tell him the committee, they're not involved with that. Now, Nezu does pick up the phone, and right now he does watch. He slides through to see a factory. He sees a piece of paper. He sees the coordinates. noting them down in his head. Then he looks and sees the ground, the way everything is, the structure, and then there's just the mass grave. Now, Deku does look at Nezu. As Nezu, he suddenly does have his face drop. And right now, Deku, he does tell Nezu, that place was a dumping ground for the committee. The earliest decay they found on some of those people, he believes to be from either 5 or 6 years ago. And that's the earliest. The latest could be at a possible 10 or maybe even 20 years. He doesn't know how fully a body can decay. And he never really got to that part in anatomy classes. Or biology. Whatever it really is. Now, Nezu does look towards Deku. Ask him exactly, what is all this? Proof of your conspiracy. I have an entire file with information, Nezu. An entire file that tells me the committee is involved. List names and locations. And evidence. I can give you copies of that evidence on the computer. However, I want you to back them up and be careful with them. You don't want me going after the committee. No. Because after I murder them all alive, then I am going to put this public online. I am going to put this public information to good use. Neglectful use of resources. And multiple laws being completely stepped over. These people need to know. Their hero society, what they've done is bad. Izuku, you understand what this will do. You'll break everything. I know. But maybe it needs to be broken to be fixed. Or maybe it just needs to be replaced. But even then, what do you do with the old pieces, Nezu? Do you take them apart to see what you could fix? Do you get angry at it? Do you just break it? Or do you try and make use of it by repurposing it? Melting down the metals you can save? Fix? Trying to reforge it? Try and put them in prison to reform them, like the said metal? Tell me, Nezu, what would you do in my shoes? I am aware that you've been experimented on in the past. I've looked into you. What would you do to the very people who stole your life? Who've fucked over you at every point in your life? And they still think that they can control you. They still think that you're a puppet on their own strings, Nezu. What do you think that you would do? Now, Nezu does remain silent. And Deku does ask Nezu a question. Can he get him into contact with Mandalay? Mandalay? Yes. I'd like to speak with her. Gain her abilities. I am aware that her and... what was their name? That one pro involved in the incident. She lost her quirk. Yes, she did. It was quite unfortunate. But the villains are all in jail now. Yes, about that. All for One's my next target after this. I wish to go to him and steal his abilities. Then I'll kill him. Why? Nezu, him and the League of Villains are a pain. Right now, what I'll do is end it. I break everything down. Then we can build it again. Stronger. Better. This is only going to happen again and again, Nezu, as long as things don't change. I'll change them. I'll make sure things are put right. Things are better. Besides, killing All For One, you can't say that that's really that big of a fucking loss. All Might tried it years ago, didn't he? Now, Nezu does stir Deku. And Deku does tell him he's heard of All For One, and the underworld in fact. He looked into quite a bit of things. He even heard stories from Chizuki, Overhaul, the man who had Eri. And right now, there actually is where Nezu does ask Deku about Eri. And Deku does inform him. Eri right now is safe. She's secure and she's happy. He's teaching her how to use her quirk so that she can control it. However, he does still have those quirk destroyers. Now, Nezu does hear about that, asking Deku what he does plan to do with those. Does he plan to sell them and make a profit? Does he plan to get rid of them or use them? And Deku does stare at the man. As right now, Nezu, he realizes a few things. Deku has many of the cards on the table. He's showing his deck. And, well, right now, there's an issue. Nezu, he thought that Deku, he had a crappy pair. Maybe a good thing, but right now he has a royal flush. Nezu, he sees that Deku, everything he does have, the more he exposes, the better his cards are getting. The better his entire situation is. And it seems a bit more desperate for the pros to try and fight. Deku wants to break down the Hero Society, then rebuild it into a proper one. That sounds good, that sounds noble, but his way of doing it is what's wrong. This will kill many people. And there's not even talking about the civilian risk. Now, Deku does tell Nezu. He's well aware. However, if Nezu does want to try and help, then Yue can rebuild their reputation. He is aware of that. Now, Nezu just stays silent. And right now, there's a bit of a risk here. Turn on the committee and save Yue's reputation and rebuild Hero Society because of the corruption? Or sit back and just watch it play out. Try and get in the way and possibly involve a war between heroes, villains, and civilians being involved there. There's no... Now, Nezu, he does sit there currently, and Deku does watch him. He's running through the simulations in his head. He's trying to calculate every little risk factor. And right now, Deku's aware of that. And Nezu, he currently does look towards Zuko. As Nezu does go to turn and start writing something on a piece of paper. Now, Nezu writes a few things down. And right now, Deku does watch him. As Nezu, he does turn the contract to Izuku and tell Izuku to list the quirks he believes he would need to fulfill his task. And Deku does stare at Nezu before looking down and telling Nezu he just needs Manderley's ability and maybe telekinesis. That would be all. I see. Will you please sign the paper? No, I won't. Last time something was signed and I was involved, I lost my freedom. I see. Well then, I understand. But this is still a delicate process. I'm sure you understand. I do. Now, currently Nezu, he does make a phone call. And he actually is a lot more intrigued by what's going to happen. It's already on the verge. This war. And Deku, if he works together with Nezu, maybe they can subvert it. Maybe they can at least minimize casualties. Preventing it might be impossible. But the more civilians who stay alive, the better. And right now, Nezu just call up Manderley. Because he does want her to meet a pro hero that will be interesting to meet. Or, not interesting to meet, a pro hero that does have interest in her abilities and how to possibly help her friend. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.